What's going on, ERB sports fans? Welcome back to this very special video where we are not going to talk about eating. We're not going to talk about sports cards. We're not going to talk about betting at all. We're going to talk about geography and travel. Yes, that's right. ERB Sports is switching it up. You might have to be known as ERBG Sports before all is said and done. Nah, just kidding. For those of you who know me, you know that I like to travel. I accomplished a bucket list item this last year in April, finally getting to all 50 states in the very United States that you can see in the map in front of you. And you might ask, how did I do it? Well, we're going to take a little trip down memory lane. I know it'll be a little bit boring. We're kind of old school here. I could probably do a screen share and give you guys pictures of each place. Maybe we'll do that later on. But how did I get to all 50 states? Now, I'm 45, so I'm not that old, but I'm a little older. So I've been around. I was born in 1977 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So my very first state that I would have ever visited was Wisconsin in 1977. Now, my recollection of memories was a little bit sketchy when I was a kid, up until probably 1981, 1982. But my understanding is that my parents took me to Illinois and Iowa, adjacent to Wisconsin, first of any state that I'd ever been to. And then eventually we took a trip to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, giving me a whopping 4 states by the time I was probably 5 or 6 years old. Next, in a trip out east when I was probably in grade school, I think I was in 5th grade, we went out east. We went all the way to Washington, D.C., New York City, kind of Virginia area. We even went back through Canada, through Toronto. We had to go check out Toronto. That was pretty cool. Back through Detroit, took the bridge across from Windsor. So that gave me Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, D.C., I'm going to count D.C. even though I don't count it as one of the 50. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. So that gave me 12 states by the time I was 12 years old. How about that for numerology, right? And then when I was in high school, I think I was a freshman in high school, my parents decided to take a trip to Florida. And we were going to drive because we couldn't afford a plane ticket at the time. So we said, let's go ahead and drive to Florida. We'll take a couple days to get there. And then along the way, we'll stop at some, monuments or things that are of note, I should say of nature. We went to Indiana. Obviously, I'd been to Indiana before, but we went to Indianapolis Motor Speedway when I was, I think I was 15 years old. We then also went to Churchill Downs in Kentucky. We went on to Tennessee. We went through Georgia and on to Florida. So by the time I was 15, I had been to 15 states. Again, what are the odds that by the time I'm 20, I will have been to 20 states? Yeah, well, you'll find out in a bit. So time passed, and I didn't really get to many new states for a while. But then when I was I think I was a sophomore in high school, we decided to rent a car. And we were going to drive from Wisconsin out to Colorado and back and hit a bunch of states in the western part of the United States. And so that gave me Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota, and Minnesota, of all things. Now, I had kind of forgotten that I actually had been to Minnesota, and I thought the first time that I had been to Minnesota was much later in life. But looking back at it, that gave me 20 states by the time I was 16. So we're doing a little bit ahead of pace. That gave me some goals to work around as far as what states to hit next. Now, I had to wait until I was in college to hit a bunch more states, in that being California. We flew to California for my mom's graduation from college. Little did I know that both my sister and I would end up living there someday. Now, I don't live there anymore, but she still does. I live back in the Midwest. But that's where things kind of take a detour, because then I kind of broke out from living under my parents and living, with my family that I grew up with. And I started to go venture out on my own. And that's where things really got interesting because I ended up working for some places, and that gave me a chance to visit some places that I would never be back to had it not been for a work trip. And so when I was in my college years, I went to Arizona. I went to a Green Bay Packer game out when they played the Arizona Cardinals. I went to spring training out there as well. I can't remember exactly the order, but I went out there a couple times visiting. Later on in my college years, I went to Alabama. I was co-oping with a company and they were going to buy some equipment from Alabama. So I ended up taking a plane down to Alabama for the day and flew back to Wisconsin. That gave me 24 states, if my math is correct. Exactly halfway was Nevada. I went to Las Vegas for the first time in 2005, the year my son was born. So by the time my son was born, I was 28 years old. I think it was 28 years old. Yeah, 28 years old, 27, 28. And I had been to half the states. So I still had a lot of states to go to. And I have 25 more states to go to by the time I was 28 until now, 45. How in the world did I get to all those states? Well, we still like to travel. My wife and I like to travel. So we would take road trips to different places that I had never been to with my parents. So we went to South Carolina, and on the way, I stopped in North Carolina and South Carolina to knock those two states off my list, giving me 27 total states visited. I took another work trip around that same time to Mississippi, ended up going to Elvis's hometown, saw his boyhood home, went to Tupelo, Mississippi, and Corinth, amongst other places in Mississippi. That was one where we kind of flew into Tennessee and then took a very, back when they had prop planes, took a prop plane from Tennessee down to Tupelo, Mississippi, which was kind of interesting. I'd never flown on a prop plane before. It was extremely loud. I can understand why many airlines don't have them anymore. But that gave me 28 states by the time I was 30. So then I changed jobs and ended up working at the current company I work for, and I've worked there ever since. Moved overseas for a bit, but before I moved overseas, I was in a couple projects that took me to Arkansas for a couple of days. I went to Little Rock, went to an Air Force base down there, did a project with them. And then we, as a couple, went to Hawaii shortly thereafter. That gave me 30 states. I still had 20 states to go, mind you, and I was probably 30, 31 years old at that point. So how in the world, again, did I get to that many states in the last 10 years? I went to Connecticut for another work trip after moving back from England back to the States. I was on a project that took me to the state of Connecticut, to Hartford, Connecticut. Count that one off the list. I went on a work trip again. These are all work trips, by the way. It's so amazing that I was able to do all this on the company dime. But I went to Louisiana for a conference, and I presented at a conference in Louisiana and New Orleans. So that was the one and only time that I have ever been to New Orleans/Louisiana was on a work trip. Same thing goes for Connecticut. Same thing goes for Arkansas. You get the picture. If it wasn't for work trips, I don't know that I would be 50 states down at this point. But that still left me with 18 states to go. I then was able to move my whole family out to California. We moved there for 2 years on a work secondment in 2014, 2015, 2016. And that is really where I started to get a bulk of the states. Because mind you, I'd never been to Missouri. I'd never been to Kansas. I had never been to Utah. And so I got all those states off my list going out to California. And then on the way back, we'll get to that in a bit. But we'll cover the states that I went to when I was actually in California. So I'd never been to Oregon. I'd never been to the state of Washington. We knocked both of those out in that trip. We went to Crater Lake National Park. We went to Olympia National Park. Went to Seattle. Both beautiful states, by the way. Lovely place to visit. Highly, highly recommend you guys go check those out. Even though you may not agree with their politics, they're absolutely stunning. The Crater Lake, what a nature gem. Absolutely stunning. Olympic National Park, Seattle area is just awesome at sunset on a clear day. It is so cool. Go up in the Space Needle if you get a chance and you're in that area. For those who have lived there or who have been there, You know what I'm talking about. At sunset on a clear day, it's absolutely amazing. I cannot tell you how cool. I would do that every single day if I lived there. It was that awe-inspiring. You see Mount Rainier in the background, and it's just, it's just staring at you. It's like, hey, I'm here. Look at me. I'm just majestic. And then you turn around and you see the entire Cascade Range that is Olympic National Park, and it's like, where in the world did that come from? And it just goes right into the ocean. It seems like, Puget Sound, you really can't tell where everything is. It just seems like it goes right from 12,000 feet straight into the ocean. It's just so cool. I cannot tell you how cool of an experience that is. By far, one of the best areas in the country to visit. But it's not the best. We're going to save the best for one of the last states. Although it was one that we visited twice. So, mind you, we had visited Hawaii before we went to other states, and we went back to Hawaii. We liked it so much we did it twice. We took some family there and decided to show them. We almost mimicked the entire trip, even though we stayed at different places. So then we moved back from California in 2016, and I went to Idaho for the first time. I went to Montana for the first time. And so that gave me, if my math is correct, 39 states by 2016. So we're only like in the last 7 years, and I was still 10, 11 states away. Another work trip for the first time gave me the state of Massachusetts. I visited a supplier there for a job that I took. I also visited a Air Force base in Oklahoma for the first time. And so by the time we hit the 2017, 2018, 2017, 2018 timeframe, I was only missing 10 states. I was missing states in the Northeast, I was missing New Mexico, and I was missing a couple of other random states like Delaware and places like that. So after taking the trip to Massachusetts, I liked it so much, my wife and I went there for another trip. And we went to New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts. So yeah, that gave me 43 states. What was ironic about that, I had never been to Texas yet either. The only time I'd ever been to Texas up until 2019 was in an airport. So I went to do an eating contest. ERB Sports is all about eating. I went to do a tamale eating contest down in Dallas over the late part of September and ended up flying into Fort Worth, spent a little bit of time down there. And that's really the very first time I'd ever been to Texas. It's hard to believe. That was one of the last states I had visited. Kind of forgot about that at the time. But I've been back there several times since. So then we're standing at 44. And we got another obvious one off the list. We went to the state of Alaska in 2019, late 2019. We went to the state of Alaska for the very first time. We liked that one again. We went back twice. The next time we took our son with, and we went fishing and all sorts of other outdoorsy stuff. Met up with some friends that we lived with in California, and that was pretty cool. So that left me at 45 states. I was only a mere 5 or 6 to go. How was I going to get to 5 or 6? At that point, I was so close I could taste it. I was like, I have to get this out of the way. I am nearly there. And so it became a mission. The pandemic year hit, 2020, 2021. I didn't go to any new states in 2020. We went to states that we had been to. We went on a northern trip of Wisconsin. We went to like other states in the Midwest, but nowhere new. We had intentions of going to Alaska. We didn't actually do that. So 2021 rolls around, spring break for school. My son's a freshman at that time. So we decided to take a road trip to New Mexico. And we went through the state of Oklahoma again. We went through the state of Texas again. We went to Oklahoma. Like I said, New Mexico. We went to Colorado, back through Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, back to Indiana. So now I only have a few states left. I'm literally 4 away by my account. So 2022 rolls around and we say, what are we going to do for a summer trip in 2022? We had done the Alaska trip in 2021. So I said, let's go to Glacier National Park. Let's go to Yellowstone, but let's take a northern route so we can get North Dakota off the list. And so that's how I got North Dakota. I went to Teddy Roosevelt National Park. We stayed in Jamestown in the summer of 2022. That was just a year ago. And so I was then only 3 states away. I was so close. And I thought, this is actually going to happen. I might actually get this very, very soon. Later that summer, after we came back from that summer trip, many of you know who watch this channel, that's when this channel was starting up. We did a couple videos actually in Glacier National Park when I had barely any subscribers. And then we came back and we went to the National. And that's really when I started to make videos for my channel. But while we were at the National, because it was in Atlantic City, we took the ferry across to Delaware. So we walked around Delaware, and we only went to one city in Delaware. We spent about 4 hours there. I count that because we had lunch, we had dinner. We just spent a little bit of time there, and then we took the ferry back across to New Jersey and then drove back to our hotel. So that left me with 2 states to go, 2 states remaining. And I was thinking, I am so unbelievably close. Now, I know I've been rambling a bit, but for those who are keeping up, I'm 45 years old, and I've been to all 50 states. And by the time I was 44, I had been to 48 out of the 50 states. So numerology-wise, I was almost at 44 states by the time I was 44 years old. I was a little bit ahead of that pace. But I had 2 states remaining. Can you guys guess them? I'll give you 1, 2, 3. Time's up. Well, they're both in the Northeast. And so that brings us to present day, April of 2023. We flew back into Boston. We took a trip out east again to the very, I almost said Pacific Northeast, the Atlantic Northeast. We went to Rhode Island. We took a day trip to Rhode Island so I could get Rhode Island off my list. And then we stayed in a dry cabin in the mountains of Vermont. And Vermont was the very last state that I needed on my 50-state journey. So as of April, I don't remember the exact date, but as of, I think, April 4th, 2023, I have been to all 50 states. 50 states before I was 50 years old. So if anybody out there wants any advice, hit me up in the comments down below. I would love to share with you your experience, my experience. Let me know what I could have done differently. Let me know what you guys have for a goal. If you're a geography nerd like I am, you definitely would enjoy this along the way. I went to so many amazing places. There's still so many places in all 50 states that I've never been to, and there's places that I'll go to again. Like, for example, little do people know, like, I've been to Nevada, right? I went to Las Vegas. How many times have I been to Las Vegas in my life? I've been there a dozen times. So some of these places I've never been back to a second time, and sometimes I've been there up to 15, 20 times. I've been to California so many times I can't count. Been to Alaska twice, Hawaii twice. I've only been to the state of Washington 1 time, though. Never went back. We're going back to Montana this year. We liked it so much. We've been to Wyoming a couple times. We've been to South Dakota a couple times. But now we're going to venture out into another goal, which is to hit all the Canadian provinces. And I'm not that far away from being nearly there. I have most of the central ones. I'm waiting this trip to get most of the western ones, and then we're going to get the eastern ones on another trip. So what was my favorite state and what was my least favorite state? That's probably what you're all wondering before we hit 20 minutes on this video. My favorite state by far, and it's not even close, Alaska. Absolutely tremendous. Don't visit in winter. You'll probably have a miserable time, but visit in summer. You'll absolutely love it. Bring your fishing gear. Do a lot of outdoorsy stuff. Rent a car. Drive all over the place. Explore the state. Go in some places that people don't normally go. You can do it on a budget. You can stay at Airbnbs. You can stay at dry cabins. It's absolutely amazing. Highly recommend it. There's great food in Alaska. There's great people in Alaska. It is awesome. I cannot say that enough, and we are not done going there. I will go back at some point. Heck, we might even buy land there someday. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And my least favorite state, what state, I hate to say it, what state did I like the least? It's right in the middle of the country, staring at me right in front with 6 letters, Kansas. I know Casey Card Connection is a fan of my channel, but Casey, you live in Kansas, man. I tell you, Kansas was my least favorite state. There is absolutely nothing that I thought was interesting about Kansas. Now, maybe you live there and you can tell me different. If you watch this video, Casey Card Connection, tell me where I've gone wrong. Help me learn more about the state of Kansas, because I found it absolutely boring, and I don't really think I would ever go back unless I was traveling to and from Colorado. So we're going to leave it there, guys. We're just over 20 minutes taking a trip down memory lane for how did I get to all 50 states before I was 50 years old. And I hope you guys enjoyed the journey. Let me know what you guys think about the journey and what your guys' goals are for United States travel. And if you guys have been to all 50 states, I'd love to hear about your stories as well. So thanks again, everybody. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next video.